All right.
Are you gonna do it?
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is FFG back with our another top four deck profile for our pre-release. This time around, it's going to be Daishan with Justimon as he got third. The only person he lost to in the tournament was actually me, which was very hard matchup, honestly. Justimon got a lot of support, and it's not a deck to be played around with. So, Daishan, take it away.
Hey everyone, welcome to my deck profile, Jesmon. So we was able to get some support that made some major changes to how we play the deck in general, to solve some of our old problems. But let's just start with the eggs for now. I'm gonna be looking into the eggs in the future, but for now, my choices was Gorimon, for the one attacking. Before you play, any seals that let you digivolve or make any selections, you want to see if you're going to draw into the Sistermon that could change the way you play the game, right? And I think that's very important to keep in mind. Any way to alter the course of the game, so that way you can just continue going, or solve any situations on board. This is the card that seems to save the day plenty of times. Now I play one of Egg, still questioning it, but every time I played it so far, it's been great. This card is called Skudomon, and when you swing with a level 7 Jesmon GX, you gain a memory. And when I tell you that one memory actually matters, because you already know he's digivolving for 5, or when sealed, he's digivolving for 4, this makes it 3. And that doesn't include the other Systemons that probably reduce it down to 1. So if your opponent doesn't have a tamer, you can leave them at 1, or you can continue your turn, depending on how you see the situation in the game so far, right? Now, we're going to start with the BT6 Huckmons. Now, as you can see here, I'm missing this guy. I do have it. I just don't know where it is. But it's pretty solid, pretty basic, right? This card is a 3-cost card that could never change out. He searches the top 5 cards of your deck, and you get to grab any Sistermon, or any Huckmon, or any Jesmon pieces. But you got to keep that in mind. No Royal Knights. So that really hurts the splashing of other Royal Knights if you're going to keep this at 4. Keep that in mind. It's very important. But overall, great card, 3-cost card. And there's plenty of other combos we could talk about in the future when it comes to this card. Like, for example, with the new support, you could also look at the old starter deck, Gonkumon, actually, that plays Huckmon instead of Sistermons from the trash, which invokes more searching, just in case you need to get that Jesmon GX and you know he was lacking. You know? Keep that in mind with the deck, because you have many limited situations. Now, with the other Huckmon choices, we have BT7 Huckmon. Right? You're probably wondering, why is it 2? This is a very good card. Again, with Jesmon, this is a very piece deck, right? And that means that you're going to need at least one of everything. And the worst thing you could do in this world is a bottom deck, your level 5s, your level 6s, everything. And that's going to happen. Mind you, you still want to do the search. So when you have everything up, this is more of a, when I'm in control, I want to stay in control kind of card. I want to get the rest of the sisters out of the deck, right? So now I don't mind bottom decking. Keep that in mind, because you have that selection when you're going through the Huckmons. Now, it's time to pour into the new stuff. Now, I'm playing only 3 of these instead of 4. It's very important. Keep in mind, there's no searching, there's nothing like that. But the new Huckmon, I love this card to death, right? This guy says, when you play a Sistermon, he digivolves into Bal Huckmon for free, right? Now keep that in mind when combo with Jesmon. When Jesmon X comes out, you summon a Sistermon, free Digivolution. When Jesmon swings, Savior's going to activate another Sistermon. Digivolve up, right? And that's not all. It's inheritable, is fantastic for keeping turn. We Jesmon players have always had this issue with cards like Blitz Jesmon, or the starter deck one, who costs 4. That's a lot of memory, right? Um, but costs a lot of memory. But we get to retain our cards with our turn with cards like these. All right, moving on. Now, here comes meta calls, because we have decks like Royal Knights. We have other decks that rely on stuff that might use Death X, which unfortunately could be anti our deck. We have 2 Solar Mods, and that's probably why you see the cuts in these rookies, right? 2 Solar Mods is so I can see at least one. Because to be honest with you, you only need one. And you're probably thinking, what does that mean, Shadow? There's so many cards that can delete this card. Right, but wrong. So there's Crimson Blaze, right? And there's Crimson Blaze, there's cards that delete level 3s, stuff like that. When we get into the Sisters, you'll understand that this card is so protected, it almost never leaves the field, right? And, I mean, it's not a perfect world. You might just lose this card, but you probably bought so many turns that you kept this game in your control, right? So, moving on to the level 4s, we have the old school Huckmon. Why 2? Well, the deletion effect is very powerful, right? But again, we have the ability to search within our deck and grab the Huckmons that we need, right? But it's self-explanatory. We want to get rid of the little guys who are in the way so they don't digivolve up. We want to get rid of the card that's navigating us away from gaining memory, etc. This is a removal card that just, it solves its purpose as it comes out, right? Then we have Huckmon 1K. This card can be viewed as terrible and could be viewed as a filler piece. But one of the most important cards in the deck is Justimon X. And we know when he comes out, he's the greatest card in the world. The turn after, not so much. He's not summoning Sisters except for the Savior underneath, if it's not the OG. And that 1K really makes the difference. Because he's not just an 11K, he's a 12K. And that will matter in many situations versus other level 6s when you have Sistermon or other cards that boost him. You'll understand that as you continue to play Jesmon moving forward. Now, this is one of my favorite cards. This is Huckmon, the new one, right? Now, continuing from the old Huckmon, when you play a Sistermon, you digivolve for free. That's not the case here. But you digivolve for a reduced cost of 2. So you're digivolving into SaviorHuckmon for 1. Now that's, when I tell you that saves so much, it's freaking amazing. But keep this in mind. When you're playing a Sistermon, the inheritable from the original Huckmon gives you 1 memory to gain. So are you digivolving for 1 or are you digivolving for 0? Keep that in mind. Right? Now, 1 second. We're moving into the level 5s. We got the structure deck SaviorHuckmon, right? We could never argue with this card. This card is phenomenal. Why am I playing 3? Because you get to digivolve for literally 1 or 0, right? And you gain the effect that you can attack unsuspended Digimon. That effect is going to come in handy so many times to disrupt an opponent's game plan, right? Or the Jesmon or level 6 that comes after is going to get exactly what they need. Moving forward. Now we have this beauty, the new SaviorHuckmon, right? Now, he has the same effect as Huckmon, where if you play a Sistermon, you digivolve for 1, right? It's great, does exactly what it needs to do, but its inheritable is different. It has the OG Savior effect. It plays a Sistermon from hand or trash. We need to make sure that is a utility that keeps getting reused. Without the inheritable, the deck is going to fall apart. But digivolving faster into our Jesmon gives us the choices to change our level 6 lineup. It's not just stuck to Justimon X anymore. We can start looking into other things because we have control over the memory we gain and we're reducing, how much it costs. We're not passing over our turn because most of us don't play Tamers, right? But we'll get into that later. Now, I don't want to cover the level 6s just yet. We're going to cover the Sisters because, again, everybody has a preference, but in the nature of the game, you know what you're dealing with, right? So we're going to go with Sistermon Seal. Great card, right? Very great card. So what she does is when she's played, whether by effect or just on play, she can digivolve any Digimon into a Royal Knight. That's fantastic, right? But that's not all. She can give you 1 memory when you digivolve. The next time you digivolve, period. Great effect. There's just no questioning it. But that's not what makes her so good, is it? Any one of these cards, like Huckmon or Huckmon, if you play her, you've activated their effect. So you get to digivolve, and then her effect triggers in the queue, and then you can activate her effect to digivolve the next one into SaviorHuckmon. And you're still saving memory, and you're activating inheritables based on whatever you're pulling out, right? Can't argue with it. Can't argue with how good of a card that is. Excuse me 1 moment. Alright, so now we have OG Seal. Now, in time, it is tested and proven that this card is incredible. On play, gain 1 memory, so she's actually 3 cost, unless, you know, cards stop that from happening. And she gives all Huckmons, all Royal Knights, plus 2k. You can't refute that that extra 2k is not needed. I cannot stress this enough. And because she gets played for free, you get control over the turn because you're gaining 1 memory and momentum with the new stuff, right? So now you're not gaining 1, you're gaining 2, right? Or you're gaining 3. Think about how often you can take advantage of how great that is. Now, I play 1 seal. 1 seal from the structure deck. This card is important, not only because it's searcher stuff, right? You get to search 3, you get to grab any one of the Royal Knights with their traits, or Sistermon or Huckmon pieces. This is one of the few cards in the deck that lets you get any Royal Knight. I need you to keep that in mind. That helps you with the utility in the deck. Also, it trashes the rest, giving you access for Jesmon GX or Jesmon, anything like that. So any card you don't keep in your hand, it's now lurking in the trash for you to use. This card is amazing. But the last thing is the reboot. Reboot, sometimes it doesn't matter, but in many cases, when you're solidifying your win, everybody has a clapback turn. The clapback turn is so scary, but Jesmon GX rebooting with all this protection and so much DP as a blocker is unaffected by most things. Not many people can get over that. And this card, just one simple card, can make that possible, right? Now, we move over to probably my favorite card, a 3-cost card, Decoy Blanc, as I call it, from Structure Deck 12. So her effect is, on play...
Real quick, Deshaun, if you can you turn the cards the other way?
Oh,
so they're facing us? Yeah, it's all good.
Force of habit.
No,
so, on play, trash any card from your hand, draw 2, right? That's not all she does, right? She has Decoy. So if a red or black Digimon, yes, that covers the Jesmon or the Gankomon or plenty of other cards, right? She can die in their place, protecting them. Now, this is also important for cards like Solarmon, right? Which protects us from one of our few weaknesses in the deck. Where if they do a card that kills all level 4 or level 3s, she can go in his place, right? That's pretty much enough said, right? This covers a lot of things. And you want to summon this card before you swing into security. I promise. That's one of the cards that you need. Then we have the OG.
One more time.
Blanc.
One more time.
Huh?
Flip the cards. One more time.
Sorry. OG Blanc. So she gives all Sistermon blocker, right? But that's not all she does too. She also gets you to draw 1 card, helping you continue with your turn and having more access to answers that may, to problems that may occur. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Give me 1 second. So we're going to move on to the level 6s. I realized that I did not cover all the level 5s, but to be honest, they're 1-ups, so I'll cover those at the end. So we have, for level 6, we have 1, Justimon X. This card, when I tell you this card has saved me so many times, and for the meta call right now, Shine Greymon is probably one of the few cards that you're going to end up dealing with. Mirage Galgamon is probably going to be one of these where it's going to come up as well. Where his Digivolution effect is play a Sistermon from hand or trash. When it's played, it checks for Sistermons or a Gankomon underneath, and everybody gets plus 2,000. It can't be sent from the hand or to the deck, and can't be reduced until the end of your opponent's turn. This card is very important, especially when you're playing Jesmon GX, to cover the extra 2k buff, and for protection overall. You don't want your decoy to go. You don't want your blockers to go. Keep this in mind. This card is going to solidify so many wins in the future. It would be a mistake not to run at least one of these cards. So, this is where it gets questionable, right? The new Jesmon, right? So you're probably thinking, Shadow, he doesn't summon any sisters, right? Yeah, absolutely right. His Digivolution effect is that he can pop a 6k or less. 6k or less, not a lot, right? But it also goes up for every card that's on the field by 2k. And it's not capped. So you can delete a lot of things. You can delete megas, you can delete multiple cards in your way. And he has a secondary effect where every card gets a 1k buff for every other card on the field, all together at the same time. This card is going to help you clear cards out of the way And most times, it's just going to be a digivolving effect play, and you digivolve right over into Justimon X, and you just keep doing what you got to do. But when I tell you this call solves a lot of problems and causes less problems for me than I thought it would, I would suggest that you try it out. It's still in the trial phase, but at least try one. Don't sleep on it yet. Now, another one of Jesmon Blitz. Now, I had this at 2 before. I'm not going to lie to you. And in combo with this card, now that the cards cost less, I would run this with I believe it's BT9 or BT10 SaviorHuckmon in here, where you digivolve and you give it the ability to attack unsuspended digivolve. So you would just digivolve right over and run over their guy. And in most cases, you can just summon a seal and digivolve into Justimon X and get that piercing. Why this card is important is that not only does it give you another, Sistermon summon, you get 3k to keep for the turn, and you get an extra check, right? The extra check matters, the extra sister matters, and it keeps the deck flowing. You got another draw, and you're retaining a lot of memory. He gains a lot of DP as well, so you get to continue turns. I also like to play him with the OG Savior, which we trash a lot, and we're able to put right back into a stack. But we'll talk about that in a second, okay? So here is probably the most important card in the deck, Justimon X. This card costs 3 to digivolve, grabs a Sistermon from hand or trash, but that's not really what's important. Aside from the fact that he can summon any sister, it's plus 2k to all Digimon on my side of the field to the end of your opponent's turn, and they all can attack unsuspended Digimon. I cannot stress how much that saves this deck from so many weaknesses that come into play. It is the best counter card, and now that we digivolve for 3, and sometimes people will leave us at 1, thinking that that's it, right? But we have Huckmon, we have Huckmon now. We're gaining all of this memory, and we're continuing our turn, and we have the opportunity to just really dig into our opponent's security, right? Moving forward, we have our level 7s. We have Jesmon GX, the boss, the monster himself. Now this guy, the whole point of throwing cards into the trash is that he can dig into the trash or the hand and slip a Royal Knight underneath, of 13 cost or less, of course, and activate the digivolving effect, which would be either Huckmon or Jesmon X, right? Oh, and in many cases, if we really need it, we can activate his effect to blow up whatever's on the field as well, right? So this card already gets the ability to attack unsuspended Digimon because of Jesmon X, run over anything, and pretty much he gains a security check for every Royal Knight underneath. So if you're playing it in combo with, let's see, this guy, he retains an extra check, right? He can attack unsuspended Digimon, and that's on top of every other check he gets, which is naturally usually 3. But if you do Jesmon, Jesmon X, and then GX, he's hitting for 5. No question, right? And again, with Reboot, Seal, and everything else, you're going to have at least 4 sisters, maybe 5, by the end of that turn. You will retain and control when you run over that big guy. But don't get overzealous. You could make that play, and it could be the reason you lose, especially if they have something in raising. If you can't answer what's in raising, you got to ask yourself, is it worth GXing, or should you just get rid of their field and leave them at a reasonable memory count so that way you can counter next turn? Now, here's probably my favorite card in the deck, from Master of Disciple. Only 2 costs. Looks at the top 3 cards and can grab any Sistermon, any card with Royal Knight traits, including itself, because it has a trait here, right? And then it delays. Now, you're probably thinking, that's cool. Well, it gets better. You get to pop this the next turn, not the same turn, and the next time you digivolve any Digimon, it reduces it by 1, adding to the memory gain, adding to the reduction that's part of the deck. And then you're trashing the cards you're going to need, right? It makes selection easier because this deck focuses on what's in trash, and you could just keep the card you need in your hand, which is most likely the Mega or the piece that keeps your turn going, right? And then the one-ofs that I completely forgot about, excuse me, you have the OG Savior. Now this card is actually questionable. In many cases, you don't really need it. I like this card when I have Decoy Blanc already is set, and I'm swinging for 2 checks, or I have the GX play, and I know I can retain my turn, which is very possible, guys. I promise you. You're going to look at your hand, you're going to realize you can GX, Swing, retain your turn, swing again. That doesn't mean you do that every time, but I promise you, you can end many games before your opponent even gets to have a turn. So keep that in mind. It's very important. And then there's Chimeramon. There's many times where you will not see this card. I'll be honest with you. Maybe you want to put it in 2, but ratios are a bit, touch and go, right? He retains their color when he fuses. He doesn't pay. It doesn't cost anything to DNA, and he digivolves with 2 seals, right? And then he gains access to any level 5 inheritable. Most of the time, it's this one. In many cases, you're going to Justimon X, and you're going to have another Jesmon that can swing twice. I use it more of as a removal piece, because Justimon X will allow the new guy to attack unsuspended Digimon. And then that new guy is going to get rid of whatever's on the board, just in case your opponent was ahead. Now they're not. This concludes us going over the Jesmon deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully I was detailed enough. If you guys have any questions, hit the comments.
Well, last thing I was going to say was any shout-outs you want to give or anything like that?
Oh, sure. Actually, matter of fact, the members of the FFG community who actually led me in. There's Bobby, there's Nick, there's Pete. We new additions. There's David, Lewis, and plenty others. I bet you I'm forgetting. They helped me get into the game, and through their cooperation, their love and support, I feel like I got in a place in the game where I feel very comfortable playing it. But community is the most important part. Come to Truly Urban if you really want to experience a locals in which people support each other. Not knocking down any communities, but that's where my heart is.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, and hopefully you get many more wins with this deck. Right. Be safe, man.